Hello, Dr. Andrew Allen from Midwestern State University in Wichita Falls, Texas. And this is the second ATSSB All-State Etude for the 2017-2018 school year. For those of you who've already listened to the first video, this is quite a bit faster, this is quite a bit more technical, there are quite a bit more technical challenges to deal with in this piece. But I hope that if you just remember a few things, this will become much easier. Number one on this piece, number one, take it slow. Just as I stated in the first video, take it slow and steady with your metronome, work in small chunks, and you will be much more successful. Never try to tackle something like this as one big chunk or as a few large chunks. Take it slow, take it a beat, 2 beats, a measure at a time, whatever you need to do. There's no shame in that. That's how professionals practice. Now, the next big problem with this piece, many of you may be concerned about the quick articulations. Many of you may get some excess sound when you articulate. Many of you may be displeased with your initial efforts in these repeated articulations. If you're one of the many people who's been taught to articulate with ta through the years on saxophone, you may encounter several problems here with these repeated articulations. Ta just doesn't really work that well on saxophone. I would say for anybody, try a tick, 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 or try a tet, 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 tet articulation. One of those two are going to work much better with saxophonists. Perhaps with this, depending on you, I think a tet articulation works very well with these staccatos for me, but we're all different. We all have different mouths. We all have different tongues. Tet may work very well for you. The other thing to consider when you're playing all these repeated articulations, you need to keep your air flowing through them. Many people try to separate their airstream with their tongues, and that causes all kinds of problems. Very, very unpleasant articulations, and articulations that are late or husky or pose other musical and aural problems. So make sure that when you're practicing this, I would hold some of these rearticulated pitches as if they were longer note values. So for instance, in the very first bar, go slow, and don't go too short on these staccatos, especially if you practice it at a lower tempo. I can assure you when you start to speed it up, they will shorten themselves. For those people who like your tap, 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 very, very short at lower tempos, you're going to have problems. So just watch out for that. A couple other things to consider, especially when you have these large leaps. Don't overemphasize that higher note. Now remember, on saxophone, we don't have to reach for these notes. The only distance between the F sharp and the C natural that you find in the first bar is a very, very small finger motion for us. There needs to be no embouchure change. There needs to be no more finger change than is necessary. And in fact, I think if you, in my personal experience, if you focus on the bottom notes of those passages instead of worrying about the top notes, you're going to find much more success. Okay? And again, practice this slow and steady, especially for passages like these that we can make them harder than they need to be mentally. So go very slow and focus on the most connected finger motions that you can. Watch yourself in a mirror, make sure there's no popping fingers, make sure there's no embouchure motion, and I think you're going to find success with this. Just a couple other things. Dynamics are still very important in this piece. There aren't nearly as many as there were in the first etude for this year, but the ones that are there count a great deal. Since we don't have as much contrast, we need to take advantage of what we have. So make sure that you're playing all of those diminuendos, all of those crescendos and decrescendos, and make them count. Now, this will take some work, especially for those of you who may be younger saxophonists. but it'll be worth it. Again, don't let this be the only thing that you practice for the next few months, but let it be a jumping off point, a springboard into new technique, into new skills, into new abilities for you. Again, I wish you good luck.